Hi, my name is Justin. I am a pastor and a seminary professor. Some of my students have asked for some short practical insight in how to use Logos Bible software, and so that's what I want to do for you today. So I want to start with something very simple, which is the right-click menu or the context menu, and I just want to walk you through step by step the major stuff in there so that when you look at more detailed things, you'll kind of know where you are or know how to find what you are looking for. So let's get started. So I'm looking at my text for my sermon on this Sunday, Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 16. It says, "During those days he went out to the mountain to pray and spend all night in prayer to God. When daylight came, he summoned his disciples, and he chose 12 of them, whom he also named apostles." And then he lists the people that he called, concluding with Judas, the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Now, there's a lot of things we could look at in this passage. If you want to study this passage in depth, then you could reflect on the word summoned versus the word chose and the word traitor. You could work through all these different things. But I think that the one that'll be really helpful for us right this second is to look at the word apostle. And so I'm going to right-click the word apostle, and Logos is going to open up this context menu for me here. Let me get that and then zoom in for you here so you can see it a little bit more closely. So the first thing that I want you to notice is on the left side, I've got lots of things. I can scroll down through this, and I can get lots and lots of information on this word. The right side of the menu will change based on what I select. So right now, I have the selection is apostles, and it gives me a whole bunch of things to do with this. If I select reference, then instead it highlights the whole verse instead of just that word. And it gives me a lot of things to do with that particular reference. Then I could look, for example, at a specific, the manuscript form here. It's the next thing. This is the Greek word that is underneath the word apostles. So the people at Logos have taken the text, in this case the CSB, and taken the Greek text underneath it and have shown what Greek word is being translated by each English word. And that, in this case, is apostolos. And so that gives us the word in the language itself. Now, just like in English, words change based on their grammatical function. So if I said, I am, that's the word to be changed to be first person singular. If I said we are, the word is becomes are to become first person plural. If I said he is, that's third person singular, and so on. So those are different ways that the word to be can appear based on what it means. Maybe even a simpler example is the dictionary definition of a word. So if I wanted to look up the word dogs, I wouldn't look up the word dogs in the dictionary. I would look up the word dog. And the S, I know, because I'm an English speaker, was added to it to make it plural. But the dictionary form of the word is dog. In the same way, in Greek, words get changed based on their usage. And so if I did a search for this top word, it would give me cases where the word apostle is in the accusative plural. But if I go down one more, this gives me what's called the lemma. You can see that right here. The lemma is the dictionary form of the word. And so that's what I'm looking at here. If I want to do a word study, the lemma is what I want to use. So in this case, the lemma for apostle, or for apostolos, is apostolos, right? And I can see that right here. This is one of your key things. This is where you'll spend a lot of your time doing careful exegesis of the scripture. Here, you see you don't have that many options. I can copy that if I wanted to copy and paste it somewhere. I can search for that specific word. I could use this lookup tool. But here I've got lots more options. Several things are worth looking at here. One, the fact book will open up kind of a catch-all dictionary, and that'll show me lots of resources I have that talk about this word. We'll do a separate video on the fact book. The next one's Bible word study. This will show me dictionaries that refer to the word. It'll show me where this word is used in different places in the New Testament or in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Of course, this will let you pronounce it.
Apostolos.
So you can do that as well. It uses the Erasmian pronunciation. I can copy the reference to this word. This URL will give me a link. Sometimes when I'm teaching a class, I do this. I will copy this and use a link to make a link in PowerPoint or something, so that when I click that link, I can open up logos to that word. I could also copy the search string for it, so I could copy and paste this into a search window, or I could copy and paste just the word itself, the text. Next, I've got visual copy, which is for making slides and things like that. I can add a note to this word. It's like a marginal note, and I could put it in any different number of notebooks that I have. I've been playing with some of the workflows, and so that automatically creates some notebooks that you can use. I can close that up. Next, I could search for that word, and that'll open a Bible search to do that. I could do an inline search, where instead of opening up a search window, it would search within this pane. Like if in a PDF you pressed Control F on Windows or Command F on Mac, how it would let you search within that document. That's what an inline search does. It could be very convenient. A Bible search here, search all open resources. So if I had multiple books open, it would search all of them for it, do a search of all my books for it, do an all search. I'll have to do another video explaining the difference in a book search and an all search, but you can play with it. And then here, it would look for the manuscript form in this case. So apostolos in the noun, accusative, plural, masculine form, which is the manuscript form. So it would search for that. Next is this lookup tool, where I can look it up in my top-ranked dictionaries. So my favorite is the New International Dictionary of New Testament Theology and Exegesis, which gives kind of the history of a word and the way it was used in Jewish literature and in Greco-Roman literature. I like it a lot. It's TADNT Kittle is what we call it usually after the name of the first author. It's an older version of the same thing. It's got some problems. LSJ is a standard, like lexicon, a standard dictionary. A lexicon is what you call a dictionary where the definitions are in a different language. So if I get a regular like Webster's dictionary, that's a dictionary because the words are in English and the definitions are in English. This is a lexicon because the word you're looking up is in Greek, but then the definition is in English. Just another one, BDAG is the standard academic reference. So these are some that I have kind of ready to go. Power lookup is the next thing. You can play with that too and see some of the cool features there. Perseus will look it up in ancient Greek literature online. Add lemma to word list, so I can also create a word list of things I want to study as well. And then I could send it to Faith Life Proclaim. That's the presentation software that syncs up with logos that I use. And so I could send that over, and if I wanted to include that word there. So if you were preaching and you wanted to draw attention to this word, that'd be an option as well. So that, like I said, this is kind of your main area a lot of the time, and so this is definitely one worth paying attention to. Next is the root word. I would just be cautious with root words. Root words can be very misleading to us in modern time in English. If I started making a bunch of conclusions based on the root words of English words, then I could really mislead you. If you are not familiar with Greek or Hebrew, then I would not, I would just skip over the root word. If you like, if you can't tell that says stello without looking at the letters next to it, then for sure don't try to mess with root words. It's just pretty sophisticated. So I'd skip over that if I were you. Next is the morphology. And so this is the way that the dictionary form of the word here is modified to become the form in the text. So dog becomes dogs, becomes plural. In this case, it tells me that this word's a noun, that it's in the accusative case, that it's plural, and that it's masculine. So Greek's got masculine, feminine, and neuter. The accusative tells me how the word's used, so it's called a case. And so if you're not familiar with that, then of course this does at least let you look up what accusative means, now that you know that that's the case that the word's in. And I could click this little drop-down arrow here. Apparently not. Apparently I cannot do that. Okay, well. Oh, I'm sorry. That's just telling me that it's here. That's not one of the drop-downs. Drop-downs are on the left. Sorry. So that's useful as well. So if you say, is this singular or plural? Like in Galatians when it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. In English, fruit is a singular and a plural word. So you want to know, is the Greek word singular or plural? And you could right-click on fruit, go down to morphology, and see that it's plural. Again, here you could search for this morphology. You could do an inline search for other words that are in the accusative masculine plural, which is a cool way if you're learning Greek to kind of get a feel for the cases and to kind of test yourself on that. Again, you can add a note to the morphology. You can work through this kind of stuff too. Next are the Strong's numbers. I don't find that useful at all. Strong's numbers were a cool tool a long time ago. James Strong did a very impressive job going through and creating this massive index for the Bible. And for pastors or students who didn't have the ability to use the Greek text, it was a nice shortcut. However, today, if I can just click the lemma and search for it, there's not really much purpose for the Strong's number anymore. So I would skip over that too. The next one's a little bit different. This is the Lounaida number. This is a different kind of dictionary. So instead of being in order alphabetically, this is in order by meaning. And so like it's 53.74, right? So this would tell me the words in that group, 53, I could find like similar meanings close together. So 73 and 74, whatever. So that's a very cool thing for a word study, because sometimes you might not just want the specific word, you might want other words that are similar and search for them too. And so this resource would allow you to do that. So I could, under lookup, click Lounaida, and it would show me the Greek English lexicon of the New Testament based on semantic domains. And I could blow this up a little bit so you can see it. And you can see 53.73 apostole, the role of one who's been commissioned and sent as a special messenger. Apostolos here, the one who fulfills the role of being a special messenger. Pseudo-apostolos in 53.75, one who claims to be an apostle but is not. 53.76, euangelistes, one who announces the gospel, evangelist. So you can see these like similar words are together. And so for certain studies, I might want to do a search for 53.73 and 53.74. And so this particular resource kind of enables that, which is pretty neat, right? So back to our context menu. Next, Logos has put in these noun senses. You can see again the title of what you're looking at here. And it tells us the sense of this is apostle. This just creates a way of smoothing out some of the differences in translations. So translations, for lots of good reasons, will use different words to translate the same word to create a certain poetic structure or to make it easier to read or whatever. And all translations do this. the King James famously, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" There's not two different words there for death and grave. They modified it for the sake of flow, and so that's where that comes from. But the noun sense lets you find where a word is used in a certain way, regardless of how the translation renders it. And so that's a useful tool as well. It's different than just searching for the word, because sometimes the words are, like a word can have multiple different definitions. So this will show you a specific sense of it and can be a useful tool too. So you can go to the fact book for that. The Bible Sense lexicon is very similar to Launida in the sense that if you click on that one, it will give you a tree. Here, let me select this and let's switch here. So you can see this says apostle, and that's a sub-meaning of envoy, which is a sub-meaning of communicator. And so like you've got communicators who could be complainers, envoys, messengers, stammerers, translators, witnesses, or word scavengers. Envoy, I could click that, right, and it'll show me that apostle is a sub-meaning of that. Messenger could be messenger of good news, proclaimer, herald, or runner messenger. And so this gives me some really useful things. I could then go over here, see, and I could search for the sense of apostle. I could find, in this case, apostle only ever renders one word, apostolos, 78 times. But I could, sometimes there'll be one that has more than one. So in the case here of messenger, if I switch from apostle to messenger here, then it'll show me that messenger translates several different words, and that I could compare that as well. And so I could search for that word, search for the sense messenger, do different things like that. So that's just another really cool thing that's right there for you in this context menu. Let me switch back here. Okay. Next, it identifies the people that are being discussed here. So the 12 disciples or an apostle. I can look this up in dictionaries that I have. I could look it up in the fact book, which will pull a lot of different information together. I can look it up on the atlas. In this case, I don't think that would show me anything, but sometimes it'd give you a location. Like if the people group was Ephesians, it would show you where Ephesus was. Search it or whatever. This is useful because sometimes somebody's not referred to by their name. So being able to right-click, say he up here, and see that it's Jesus. Sorry, it's a little too zoomed in, but you can see it refers to Jesus. I could search for every time Jesus says something, even if Jesus's name is not used, even if it says he or something like that. And so that's a really useful tool as well. So it's 12 disciples or an apostle, in this case, referring to the same group. Next, it gets me into these other kind of contextual tags. Jesus's ministry is an event. So I could look for times that prayer shows up in Jesus' ministry by going to Jesus' ministry, clicking Bible search, and then taking the search it makes here. And see, if highlight it now because I've got this search open. And let's bring it over here. You can see, so it automatically puts it in the right syntax. Event, Jesus' ministry. So when Logos does a search for something other than just a word, it uses these little tags. So it's, I'm looking for the event, Jesus' ministry. So the easiest way to get those is to right-click something in Jesus' ministry, find it, and click search. You don't have to do it that way. So I could type event, and it'll give me a list of suggested events. I could type ministry, and it will show me Jesus' ministry, beginning of Jesus' public ministry, Galilean ministry, Jesus' ministry, and then give me a list of the passages that refer to that. So then I could do Jesus' ministry, and you use all caps for these kind of searches. We'll talk about that in more detail another time. The word call, right? And then I could find a list of the times that the word call is used in passages in Jesus' ministry. Just really cool. It's not actually that great of an example, but it shows you the power of the software, I think, for sure. So going back then to apostles again, the context menu here. Oh, sorry, fade back. Here we go. The Jesus ministry, life of Jesus, all these events you can search the same way, right? In the case of preparing a sermon, in this case, this one, Jesus chooses the 12 apostles, is probably the most useful, right? Because I could click this and do a search, and I could find where Jesus calls his apostles in the other gospels, and I could compare that event and see how do the different gospels describe this same thing to give me some more insight. Next, I can come down to the preaching theme of calling. And this is the top preaching theme here, the one that they think is most important. I could click Factbook and get a lot of information about it. Or I could click Sermon Starter Guide, and it would give me sermons I have in my library that talk about this idea of calling. It could give me sermon outlines. It could give me illustrations. It could give me lots of really cool tools. But if I click this little arrow next to it, that little drop-down arrow right there, then I can see there's a lot of other preaching themes that are included here as well. Church leadership, election, God's power, guidance, health and healing, Jesus' miracles, prayer, spiritual warfare. Obviously, these are something that some human being has come in and tagged, and so they're not perfect. There's the possibility of mistakes, but still it's a very useful tool. Theology topic, the church is apostolic. So this, I could do Factbook Guide or Theology Guide, and if you wanted to study a topic, say I want to study this idea about how are the apostles the foundation of the church, this would be where I could do that. Look up is the Lexham Systematic Theology Guide, which again is something that the people at Logos have put together that sorts all these different theological ideas. And so I could click that, and I could search. If I do a Bible search here, it would find me other passages that they've tagged in that way. It's kind of like a superpowered Thompson chain. Next, we get into this grammatical stuff that is probably, if you're not familiar with these terms, it's just going to be confusing to you, but you could get into the genre of it, the very specifics of the way that the Greek is used here. We'll talk more about this if I can do a video on the exegetical guide. Apostleship as a cultural concept. This is cool. Apostles are not just something in the Bible. There's something in other surrounding cultures. Greeks had apostles who delivered messages and stuff. So what does that mean for us? Well, if I click this cultural concept and click Factbook, then it will show me documents I have in my library that explain what an apostle was to other cultures in the area and help me to understand how the Bible built on that and changes that. And so that's really neat as well. Focus main clause, the Lexham Discourse Greek New Testament. This would be for like diagramming purposes. It will show me, okay, this is the main clause of this sentence, that it's in a sentence, that it's a thematic addition, that it's in the genre of story, that it's a narrative of commission, and I could even bounce this out even more and say it's a gospel narrative. Like, what am I reading? How do all these things work? And so those are all very cool as well. Propositional outline, I could click that and it would show me that it's a characterization. This is propositional outline is where somebody's gone through and tried to explain what each clause is doing. That's pretty neat. It's a declarative sentence. So there's imperative sentences, which are commands, or interrogative sentences, where are questions, different kinds of sentences. This just tells me it's just a simple declarative sentence, just explaining what's happening. I could look this up as well. And again, if I mouse over it, it'll tells me that a declarative sentence is usually seen as an assertion of fact. It's usually used as the indicative mood and in the most prototypical word order. It just tells me that this is what happens when you use a declarative sentence. Tells me I have a double accusative here. Again, I could look this up in this glossary that explains to me what a double accusative is, and it'll reference me to some Greek grammars and stuff that explain that. Finally, it's tagged as a speech act, that it's informative, assertive. And again, I can look that up and see an assertive speech act is where a speaker makes an assertion or a statement, gives a description, and it would show me how to search for that kind of thing in other places too. So I could look up assertive speech acts where Jesus is the speaker and kind of work through things like that as well. So and of course, then at the very bottom of this, even after all of that, you have a little box that says show more information. And if I click that, that gives me an info pane that gives me even more stuff here as well. Some people like this format better, rather than trying to navigate a right-click menu, because you don't have to worry about losing your place. The info pane will stay open like this. And so I can see the definition of the word. I can see the way it's translated in different translations. I can see the word information that we looked at the beginning, the lemma, the root, the Strong's number, the morphology. I can see the literary typing and the context of it. I can see all these other references to it, this grammatical stuff and everything we've seen. I can see the events that it's included in, and I can see, in this case, the footnotes that are on it in the CSB. So I know that I said a short video, and now we're at 26 minutes, but I think that that just goes to show you how powerful this software is. It takes you almost 30 minutes for me just to explain to you the little drop down, the right click box, the context menu for one little section of Logos Bible software. So I hope that this little guide is helpful to you. If you've got any questions that I could try to help answer, then please let me know, or other things you think we should have some kind of video on. All right, thanks. Have a great day.